Good evening. I hereby call to order the April 13th, 2015 meeting of Mayfield Heights City Council. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DeJohn?
Here.
Mr. Mano?
Here.
Mr. Mercurio?
Here.
Mr. Monaco?
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Here.
Mr. Sharia?
Here.
Mrs. Tressi?
Here. Please join me in a pledge allegiance. This evening, we will hold an executive session prior to consideration of ordinance number 2015-14. And I need a motion to hold an executive session regarding union contracts. Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia? Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, this motion has carried. We will now move on to the approval of the minutes of our March 23rd, 2015 council meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mr. Mano. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the approval of the minutes as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of our council meeting of March 23rd have been approved as written. Next, we'll move on to correspondence and announcements. Does any member of council have an announcement? Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to let council and the mayor know that a friend of mine was involved in an auto accident on Good Friday evening. Her and her husband were both transported, and she called me to tell me about all the high praise that she gave for our police, our fire, our EMS people. She says they couldn't have been nicer and more helpful. She says they did a terrific job and they made a tough situation bearable. So she asked me if I would reiterate that to council and the mayor. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Any other correspondence? I just want to report on our March 23rd Community Reinvestment Area Housing Council meeting. It was with our law director, Mr. Murphy, our building commissioner, Lisa Benedetti, our clerk of council. Ms. Zeller, who's in the audience, joined us as well. And there were some other members of the committee that were there. And what we do is annually we stop to visit some of the companies in our city, Elk and Elk, Landerbrook Dental, Staybridge Hotel, and Parker Hannifin, and the representatives from this community reinvestment group visit these offices to see that maintenance has been done or what renovations or repairs they're going to be doing for the year, how many jobs have been added, how much space has been leased. This is something that we do through the state of Ohio. Actually, it's a tax incentive exemption program, and I believe Parker Hannifin has one building left that is part of this group, and the others have a couple years left. So it's really quite interesting to go into this corporate park and see how beautiful these buildings are, and also the number of employees that are in these different corporations. We're very fortunate really to have such high-level corporate, companies in our city. So I just wanted to report on that. It's an annual thing that we do, and Mr. Murphy, was this your first year with us for this?
Second year.
Our second year. So that's my report. Anyone else have any correspondence? Okay, next we'll move on to officers, and we will begin with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, and thank you for being here with us this evening. I trust you all took some time to enjoy this beautiful weather we're having this weekend and today. It's been a long time coming. In piggybacking on Councilman Mano's praise of our EMS, This week is Telecommunicators Week 2015, which is to pay tribute to the dispatchers, the EMS 911 dispatch team. So if you see them this week, tell them, you know, they're doing a good job and we're lucky to have them. So that goes hand in hand with the response time that that couple that Councilman Mano referred to. And then also on March 26th, I had the honor to attend the Cleveland Clinic's 2015 EMS Awards ceremony. And the Mayfield Heights Fire Department, specifically Lieutenant Mike Bracchia, firefighter paramedics Kevin Constantino, Jeff Kudo, Rob Bambrick, Bill Madan, Matt Horniak, and Ryan Gavora were recognized for excellence in professional standards and received a Distinguished Service Medal for services rendered to a citizen in need. In all, 6 local departments were recognized and received honors. Some of the stories were truly inspiring. We as citizens are fortunate to be served by the skilled and dedicated men and women in the field of emergency medical services. We did send out a notice to the Marnell area residents and the flooding situation. We did gather their emails and their addresses, so we wanted to give them an update. We know that approximately 10 to 30 linear feet of 12-inch storm and an 8-inch sanitary was replaced on Circle Drive. We have reported on that earlier. And 10 to 30 feet of a 21-inch storm and 8-inch sanitary was replaced on Mallard, and approximately 5 feet of an 8-inch sanitary on Fulham was replaced. The county has completed flow metering and issued their initial finding report, indicated that the highest infiltration within the sanitary sewers is on Marnell, Hawthorne, Mayflower, and Mayfair. The county is preparing to perform dye testing of the sanitary and storm sewer mains on these streets, and additional dye testing may be needed on individual houses. Once the source of infiltration is isolated, a repair plan will be developed, likely involving the grouting of joints in the sanitary mains. As I mentioned at our last meeting, Hillcrest Hospital presented the Healthy Community Initiative program to the city of Mayfield Heights, the Mayfield City School District, and the Mayfield branch of the Cuyahoga County Public Library. A subsequent meeting was held with representatives of the remaining school district communities, and another is planned this week. HCI is a customized approach to wellness that targets 4 core areas: physical activity, nutrition, tobacco cessation, and lifestyle management, while using resources in the community. I will continue to keep you apprised of the committee's progress. Excuse me. Military and Veterans Resource Fair will be held on Friday, May 1st, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Mayfield Branch Cuyahoga County Library, which is 500 Som Center Road. Veterans are required to bring their DD-214 or NGB-22 papers. If discharge papers are not available, please bring your Social Security card. Throughout the day, there will be agency representatives as well as local businesses who can help with benefit questions, employment agencies, and other military-related areas. The event is free and open to the public. The Friends of the Library will be hosting a breakfast starting at 8 a.m., which is also free and open to those who have served and their families. The event is hosted by State Representative Marlene Anielski and the Cuyahoga County Library with several participating organizations. For more information, please contact Representative Anielski's office at 614-644-6041, or email is rep06@ohiohouse.gov. Excuse me again. As you know, the East Side Greenway plans to connect 19 greater Cleveland communities with bike and pedestrian paths. The Greenway will increase pedestrian and bicycle connectivity in and between the eastern portion of Cleveland and the 18 suburbs. The project team will be hosting a third round of public meetings in which the final Greenway plan, shaped by input from the first two public meetings, will be presented. The same content will be presented at each meeting, so choose the date and location that works best for your schedule. The meeting dates are as follows. Tuesday, May 12th is 6:30 to 8:30, Warrensville Heights Public Library. Wednesday, May 13th, same hour, 6:30 to 8:30 at Sturley's Country House. Tuesday, May 19th is 6 to 7:30 at the Collinwood Recreation Center. And Wednesday, May 20th, 6:30 to 8:30 at Bottle House Brewery. More information on the Eastside Greenway can be found on the project's website, which is www.eastsidegreenway.weebly, that's weebly.com. Also, Cleveland Water Department is celebrating National Drinking Water Week by offering a tour of the water treatment plant. Tours will take place on Saturday, May 9th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Garrett Morgan Water Treatment Plant located at 1245 West 45th Street. The event includes children's activities. Schedule your tour by calling 216-664-2444, extension 5802, or you could also visit clevelandwater.com. We have received inquiries at City Hall and wanted to advise that Mayfield Heights has nothing on the ballot for the May 5th, 2015 primary election, and any questions about this or upcoming elections can be directed to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections, which is 216-443-8683. And finally, some seasonal reminders. Please follow our codified ordinances with regard to trash. Trash should not be placed at the curb no earlier than 6 p.m. one day prior and no later than 7 a.m. on the day of your scheduled collection. Trees, limbs, branches, and the like should be placed at your curb on your regular collection day. The chipper truck follows that schedule. It is a time of the year when we are sharing the road again with bicyclists and motorcyclists. Please look twice before making any maneuvers. Also, our children are out and about. Please use caution and obey all the traffic laws. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Mayor, just a couple questions. First of all, that Greenway project, is that on our website, the Mayfield Heights website, or can we get it on there? Those dates.
If it's not, yeah, I think Renee put it on there. I'll double check.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question is, you know, I talked with Mrs. Augustine about making these meetings live, and I know Mrs. Teresi has investigated that also. Have you looked into that at all?
We do have the capability of making the meetings live. It's a matter of, I think we need to update some equipment to make sure the quality is there and make sure you know, the overall presentation is okay. So Renee is looking into that, and I'll have some more for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for the mayor? Mayor, I have one quick question. We had approved a couple months back the additional sign on Lander and Parkland for a tenant that was going to move into that litigation management building. Do we have any update on that? I haven't seen any sign go up, or?
No update. They haven't moved in yet.
They haven't moved in. Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to a report from our Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
No report this evening, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Are there any questions for Mr. Murphy? We'll move on to a report from our Director of Finance, Mr. Tribby.
I have no report either.
Thank you, Mr. Tribby. Any questions for Mr. Tribby? Next, we will move on to reports of committees, commissions, and boards, and we will begin with the Building Committee, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We had our building and legislative meeting prior to this meeting, so I won't comment on that. However, this will be directed to the mayor. A couple council meetings ago, I challenged you publicly on the Gaetano sign situation. And since I challenged you publicly, I have to admit to you that I was wrong and apologize publicly. I misread the paperwork that I was looking at, and you were correct and I was wrong. So I apologize to you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay. That's all I have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Mano this evening? Next, we'll move on to Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Mercurio.
Thank you, Madam President. Finance and Audit Committee has not met, and I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Mercurio? We will move on to our Legislative Committee, and that's Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Madam President. We had no meeting, therefore I do not have a report this evening, but we will be scheduling a meeting in the very near future.
Thank you, Mr. Monaco. Are there any questions for Mr. Monaco this evening? We'll move on to Public Works and Services Committee, Mr. Sharia.
This past week, the service department, you'll have to excuse me, I'm not feeling that well, but the service department started to clean the park. I noticed this evening the tennis nets were up, and the parking lot at the pool has been swept. And most of today, I saw the service department over at the Dijon Community Center spiffing that up and apparently getting also ready for your pancake breakfast on Sunday morning. So that looks very good. Also, Jack Boggs from OSHA stopped by last week, and he talked with the Parks and Roads Department guys and reviewed safety violations and offered some safety tips. And apparently, observing those tips and taking that advice will eventually save the city some money in future dealing with workman compensation. That ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharia. Are there any questions for Mr. Sharia?
Please don't.
We will move on to Recreation and Parks Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Parks and Recreation had their meeting on Tuesday, March 31st. The agenda was a recap on the Bunny Breakfast and its success. The city's annual pancake breakfast is this Sunday, April 19th at the Ross Dijon Community Center from 8:30 to 12:30. Children 6 and under are free. Tickets at the door are $6 per person, where the mayor and the council will be cooking. A grateful thank you from the committee to Tammy Kleins for all her good work and creative flair on the design of the spring-summer activity guide that was mailed to residents, where you can find community programs and event information. Adult lunch out, Tuesday, May 12th at noon, $10 per person, serving a taco bar, cheese enchiladas, Mexican rice, refried beans, dessert, and coffee. Entertainment is by Jerry Simmer. Reservations a must. Ordinance 2015-13 is on the agenda tonight, and Sean Ward, Director of Recreation, is here to address any questions when it comes up. Please be sure to visit the City Interactive website for more spring and summer activities for all ages, the Wildcat Sport and Fitness programs, and any questions regarding Parks and Recreation. Next Parks Recreation meeting is Tuesday, April 28th, here in Council Chambers at 7 p.m. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Seeing none, we'll move on to Safety and Transportation Committee, Mr. Dijon.
Thank you, Madam President. Our next Neighborhood Watch meeting will be May 5th at 6 p.m. Again, I encourage all residents of the city of Mayfield Heights to attend these meetings. They have a lot of useful information to keep you safe. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Dijon? We'll move on to the Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. Mercurio.
Thank you, Madam President. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night at 7:30 right here in council chambers, and we have a variety of items on tomorrow's agenda.
Okay, thanks very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Mercurio? The next committee is the Commission on Aging. And did I miss something? And unfortunately, the mayor and I both missed the meeting. That's what he was saying. Yes, unfortunately, we did miss that meeting. But I do want to remind everyone and all the residents listening that the first social dance of this year will be held on April 25th. The dance begins at 6:30 p.m. Frank Cardone will provide the entertainment. Recycling and Shredding Day is Saturday, May 2nd from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. at the Ross C. DeJohn Community Center. The annual Gold Resident Luncheon will be held on Friday, June 26th at the Ross C. DeJohn Community Center. There is a diversity panel that'll hold a discussion on how the surrounding cities address the needs of older adults with differing disabilities on Tuesday, April 21st at 12:30 at the Lyndhurst Community Center. And the next meeting of the Commission on Aging will be held on May 5th here in council chambers at 5 p.m. And I believe we are still looking for residents who would like to join this commission. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. I know there were 3 residents there that evening who expressed interest.
Great.
So we may fill those vacancies.
Terrific. That's good news. Are there any questions for me on the Commission on Aging? Okay, then we will move on to our Planning Commission. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Due to a lack of an agenda, we did not meet, so I have no report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. DeJohn? We'll move on to the Mayfield Union Cemetery. Mrs. Sabetta.
No report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mrs. Sabetta on the cemetery? Okay. Next, we will move on to the public portion. Pursuant to Section 121.02, Section H8 of the Codified Ordinance, each person will be allowed 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes for the entire public portion. Although this is not a time for public debate, this is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. Please note that there will be no personal attacks or comments allowed. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. If you would like to be heard this evening, excuse me, please raise your hand and approach the podium. Excuse me. State your name and address for the record. It is now 7:37 and we will open the public portion. Would anyone like to be heard? I guess seeing none, we will close the public portion at 7:37. We will now move on to resolutions, and we'll begin with Resolution 2015-15. Mr. Murphy.
Resolution number 2015-15, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Fund Superior Sales, authorizing dealer for Lifeline Emergency Vehicles, Inc. for an ambulance for the Division of Fire and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Discussion. Everyone received the agreement outlining the purchase of this new rescue squad, and it was detailed in a report from Chief Elliott.
Madam President,
Mr. Monaco?
I'd like to point out what I think it's a typo on the first page of the agreement towards the bottom. You have in letter, you have the amount of 260,000, but in numeral is 236,000. I think that's a mistake.
In the first page of the agreement, it's 166,000.
Yeah, but then in
And then in-
numbers, in
right,
that
it's in
numbers is 236 down below. So one of the two is wrong.
It is.
The resolution says 230, 217,761 plus 18,721.
Do we have to make any changes to that?
No.
Okay. Right. Mr. Tribby?
Yeah, obviously the wording was typed from an old contract document. The 236 is correct. It'll have to be changed before any paperwork is sent out to the vendor.
Okay. Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm kind of a little disappointed that Chief Elliott's not here tonight, and this is the first I'm hearing about this, and I am part of the Safety and Transportation. But I do have questions, so I guess the Safety Director will have to answer these questions. First of all, when was our last vehicle purchased?
This is the last vehicle, I believe, was purchased before 2009. He's trying to go on a 5-year period, if you notice his memorandum.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's every 5 years, try to get up, try to replace it. That way you have good backups and you still have some value in being able to get rid of the last line squad.
I know that we had loaders installed in the ambulances just last year. So are we retiring the ambulance that had the loader installed into it?
But
No, the quote you have here, you see the 18,000 for the cot. That's going to be in the new ambulance, and then now all three will have cots.
So they'll have loaders in them, all three of
Right.
them? So
Right now,
that's
it's just two.
last-
Now there'll be three.
Okay. Since, Mr. Trivia, how does this figure into our budget?
it was in the
Their
budget.
budget. Was
It
it
was
in
in the
their
budget.
budget?
Yeah.
In their 2014 budget?
Or 2000?
No,
Or
we
in
Cheers
their
budget.
15?
yeah, you folks appropriated 250,000. Obviously, we'll be spending less than that.
So this is something that you knew about, during your budget meetings?
Yes. Yeah, it was, as Mr. Tribby said, it was a $250,000 line item in fire to replace a squad. It was in the, what's the account? It's for
401.
401, yeah. And that also is the loader for service too, correct? Is it in that same account?
Correct.
Yes.
It's in the resolution too. It references that.
Any other questions? Mr. Mano?
I have one. If you're, Mr. DeJohn, if you're the chairman of Safety and Transportation, how come you were not made aware that this was going on with this unit? I mean, you had no notification at all? Usually, I mean, police or fire will come to the Transportation Committee and, let us know their desires and so on, and go from there.
Yeah, I don't know why. Last year when they wanted the loaders, we did have a meeting on that, but, this is the first I'm hearing about this, so, I don't have an explanation for it.
Madam President, the memo from the chief was sent out April 2nd to myself and all members of council.
This is the first I'm seeing the
Me
the
too,
memo,
I
yeah,
didn't see
so.
it, I didn't get a memo.
Mr. Monaco, did you have a question?
I just had a question regarding the warranty of this equipment. Do we have 5 years, 10-year warranty on it? Does anybody know? I couldn't find anything in the proposal.
Bob, do you know anything?
I don't think there's any 5-year warranty. Obviously, the equipment, it'll be delivered, and in the specifications in the state terms contract, there may be a warranty period, but our past practice, we've tried to replace each squad every 5 years, and so they actually are in our fleet for 15.
The only reason why I'm questioning that is because I was looking at in the computer today, and I found out that the units from last year, they had some recall on some electrical components.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. There's, it says Lifeline emergency vehicles. There's a master parts revision date, Lifeline warranty. It states warranties there.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes, Mr. Monaco, I'm sure that or Chief, the chief did his due diligence in making sure that he did his homework in looking at these companies, and from what I see, he's done a good job at that, and I think we have to think about all the elderly people in our city, so I think this would be a good idea to approve tonight. So.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-15 has been adopted. Resolution 2015-16, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-16, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Southeastern Equipment Company to purchase a wheel loader for the service department and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Monaco. Everyone should have received a copy of the quotation from Southeastern Equipment that Mr. Finaro, our service director, put together for the wheel loader and the additional cost for the cutting edge. The funds for this purchase have been appropriated in the Equipment Replacement Fund. So it's in the budget. Discussion. Any comments, questions? Mr. Tribby?
Just a point, this particular large purchase and the previous one for the rescue squad was talked about at the Budget and Finance Committee too. So it was pointed out then that we were going to plan to buy these pieces of equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Trivy. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-16 has been approved. Resolution 2015-17, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-17, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with North Star Planning and Design, LLC, to provide professional consulting services in connection with the update of Chapter 1183 fences and Chapter 1191 signs of the codified ordinances and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Monaco. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio? Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Everyone should have received a proposal from Mark Majewski, who was the planner that came to our committee the whole meeting. He was with North Star, and he has done this proposal with the cost to review our 2 ordinances, signs and fences. Unfortunately, Mr. Perry, who also presented to us at the committee the whole meeting, has decided not to submit a proposal. So this is the only proposal that has come before us. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. I would just like to make a suggestion that it's great that you narrowed this ad hoc committee down to a few people to kind of figure out what direction you want to take. I would say that maybe you want to have a couple meetings of this ad hoc committee first before you approach. You never know what you guys might be able to come up with on your own to be able to suggest and maybe streamline the process more than you think, and maybe reduce cost, who knows? But that's just a suggestion.
I agree. As I went through the proposal, I looked at the amount of time and the number of meetings. So I agree with you that I think with our ad hoc committee, they could probably meet, define what they feel needs to be changed, and then present to Mr. Majewski. Any other, Mr. Monaco? I see you have a comment.
If I recall properly, the reason why we solicited this quotes from those 2 gentlemen is to find out who would be more reasonable price-wise. Now that one is kind of withdrawn, so it's pretty much we're down to 1 company.
Yeah.
So I would.
Unless we go out again
Right.
to interview planners. And I didn't know if we wanted to wait any longer to do that.
I like the idea of the mayor to have a couple meetings among ourselves, and then we'll go from there.
I think all of us know what we're looking for in both sections of this codified. So we could really bring our suggestions to Mr. Majewski. And again, just as the mayor said, it would cut down on the number of meetings that he's planning. If I remember correctly, when Mr. Majewski came before us at the Committee of the Whole, he had mentioned something like 15 people on a committee, which would, again, just extend that entire process. So I agree wholeheartedly with the mayor's suggestion, and I've already mentioned who the ad hoc committee would be, so we can put that together and move ahead. Mr. Mano, did you have something to say?
I was just going to say, I agree with what you said and what the mayor said, and I really think that we can trim down substantially the amount of time that'll be spent on this, because we will present to him what it is that we're looking for, and that's what he'll address. So, you know, to have 15 people on the committee is crazy. It just draws it out.
And I think that, you know, at one point in time, there was probably some clarity to both ordinances. But as time has gone on and different council people, law directors, planners have looked at these ordinances, I think they've added their own twist, their own verbiage. Sorry, I apologize.
No
With all
apology
due respect.
necessary.
But they've added something to them, so now there are a lot of areas that are ambiguous and in both sections of this ordinance, and I think that we have no alternative but to just you know, clean it up and make it a little bit more black and white, take out some of the vague areas. I think it'll be easier for us to present to people that come forward to BZA and planning if it's a little bit more black and white. Mayor?
Madam President, thank you. Since you are going to have a couple meetings of the ad hoc committee, maybe you would have the opportunity to go to try and find somebody else while you're having those meetings, just
Sure.
as a suggestion.
Yep, we can do that.
I thought Mr. Perry had offered a pricing structure of some kind.
He did, and I sent,
How close
a
was he with Majewski? Do you remember?
in cost,
Yeah.
Mr. Perry was like $50 an hour, where Mr. Majewski was $150 an hour.
Okay.
Mr. Perry, when I asked if he wanted to present a proposal to council, he said that it did not fit, the time constraints were too difficult with his personal life, and it didn't fit into his future plan. So I didn't, being that he came to the committee the whole meeting, I thought he was responsive, and I really thought he was going to, you know, be a part of this, but something changed his mind. So, Mr. DeJean.
Well, if we don't approve this tonight, it's gonna slow it down longer, so, I mean, I think we should go ahead and start with these committee meetings and get the ball rolling.
Actually, this is only to do two specific parts of the ordinance. That's all the commitment is for.
But we can put it on first reading for tonight. Mayor.
I was going to mention that if you're talking about conceivably reducing the scope of work that this individual would perform, the contract, the proposal is for a lump sum amount. So whether he does a little work or a lot of work,
We have to pay
he
that amount.
arguably would be entitled to the $9,500. So I would request either there be an amendment to make it say a not to exceed, or just place it on first reading and redo it. Clarify it.
Mr. DeJean.
Well, I'll go along with placing it on a first reading, but let's, you know, schedule our committee meetings.
Okay,
We can get started.
do we need a motion? We need Mr. DeJean, will you make the motion?
I'll
to
make the motion.
Place it on first readings. Mr. Monaco seconded. Roll call on the motion to place on first reading.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes,
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-17 has been placed on first reading. Now we'll move on to Resolution 2015-18, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-18, a resolution authorizing an engineering services agreement with ACOM Technical Services, formerly known as URS Corporation, for the purpose of providing the City of Mayfield Heights with necessary engineering services and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Nope.
Mr. Sharia?
yes,
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by? Oh, we don't. We don't have the votes. So it has to be, okay. So I need a motion to place on first reading? Six to suspend.
First reading.
Do we need a motion to place it on first, or it is on first now? Need a motion to place on first reading? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded. I'll second it. Roll call on the motion to place on first reading?
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
yes,
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-18 has been placed on first reading. We will now move on to Resolution 2015-19. Mr. Murphy.
Resolution number 2015-19, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with URS Corporation to provide professional consulting services in connection with the expansion and renovation of the Mayfield Heights Police Department and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mercurio. Seconded
Second.
by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Monaco?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
No.
First reading.
I need a motion to place Resolution 2015-19 on first reading. Moved by Mr. Mercurio. Seconded. I'll second. Roll call on the motion.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, Resolution 2015-19 has been placed on first reading. We will now move on to ordinances. Ordinance number 2015-7. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Ordinance number 2015-7, an ordinance amending section 917.15 of the codified ordinances of the city with regard to the removal of weeds by owners. Third reading.
I need a motion to adopt ordinance 2015-7 on third reading. Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Mano. This pertained to discussion. I'm sorry, that's what I was. This pertained to the weeds that Mr. Monaco and Mr. Murphy worked on this ordinance. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Murphy?
Yes, I had a short discussion with Mr. Monaco before the meeting, at which I said that we had looked more closely at it, and there were a number of provisions in there that are already in the codified ordinances, but then there are other provisions that change certain areas of the codified ordinances. And I suggested that this particular piece of legislation be tabled so that we could go back and correct the changes that were missed. And there are also some references to the existing sections that were not correct. So I would request that this be tabled for a meeting.
I need a motion to table. Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Do we have a roll call?
Yes.
Roll call on the motion to table.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Ordinance number 2015-7 has been tabled. Ordinance 2015-9, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-9, an ordinance amending Chapter 1101 of the codified ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights entitled City Planning Commission by amending Section 1101-02 pertaining to council's action on the Planning Commission's decision. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place this ordinance on second reading? Oh, we're placing it on third.
Second.
Second reading. Mr. DeJohn, and seconded by Mr. Mercurio. That's okay. Roll call on the motion to place on second reading.
Mrs. Sabetta? Yes. Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
No.
No. Ordinance 2015-9 has been placed on second reading, and a public hearing will be held in council chambers on May 11th at 6:30 PM. We'll now move on to ordinance 2015-10. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-11, or 10, I'm sorry. An ordinance amending Chapter 1155 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights entitled Board of Zoning Appeals by amending Section 1155.07E pertaining to council's action on the Board of Zoning Appeals decision. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place this ordinance on second reading? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to place on second.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, ordinance 2015-10 has been placed on second reading, and a public hearing will be held in council chambers on May 11th at 6:30 PM. We'll move on to ordinance 2015-11. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-11, an ordinance amending Chapter 121 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights entitled Council by enacting Section 121.04 pertaining to salaries. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place this ordinance on second reading?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the ordinance, roll call to place this ordinance on second reading.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, ordinance 2015-11 has been placed on second reading. Ordinance 2015-12, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-12, an ordinance amending Chapter 131 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights entitled Mayor by enacting Section 131.05 pertaining to salary. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place this ordinance on second reading? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Monaco. Roll call to place this ordinance on second reading.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, ordinance 2015-12 has been placed on second reading. Ordinance 2015-13, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-13, an ordinance authorizing the City Director of Recreation to implement a pilot program regarding signage on the baseball fields owned by the city and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Monaco. At our last council meeting, our Recreation Director, Sean Ward, was here and discussed a pilot program of selling signage to be attached to our baseball fences. And this is the ordinance that pertains to that program. Any comments or questions? Would you like to ask Mr. Ward anything? He's here in the audience. Mr. DeJean?
Thank you, Madam President. Just one question. Sean, did you say that the signs will come down at the end of the season?
They will, yes. I think we have them going through October or whenever the baseball season is over. If we do fall baseball, we'll keep them up through that season and we'll take them down.
Okay. And when will you be putting them up?
You know, as soon as we get them, hopefully, there's a few people that already showed interest, so we'll try to get those up by May 1st.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ward? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Ordinance 2015-13 has been approved. It is now 8:09, and at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to recess into executive session to discuss collective bargaining contracts. Mr. Sharia? So we don't have to do another motion?
We already did it.
Okay, so we can just move into executive session? It's 8:09, and we will move into our executive session.